The wacky world of MultimediaJay.
The snow finally stuck. Oh, brother. So I recently received a comment asking why on earth I'm still talking about TVs in terms of 1080p and 60 Hz when 4K is right around the corner. And don't be an idiot and buy another 1080p TV when 4K is right around the corner. Well, no, actually 4K isn't right around the corner. 4K is here. It's just not worth buying. So I've been seeing all the 4K hysteria and all this, oh, 4K this, 4K that, you should get 4K. If you want to be on top of things, you should get 4K, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And so I'm here today to be the voice of reason and probably make a lot of people mad in the process because 4K is overrated. It's nothing but marketing nonsense spurned on by an industry desperate to bring back the glory days of selling more than they currently do right now. And this is one of those instances where the technicians and the analysts go their separate ways. The people that actually understand the business side of what's going on will know the motivation behind these TV companies and these marketers to create this 4K hysteria, which I quite frankly would rather not sink money into, because, you know, anybody who does is either a moron, a sucker, or all of the above. So, let's talk about why 4K is completely overrated and why I'm not bothering with 4K anytime soon. Now, I did that last shot to really give an idea of the size of this thing and just how big it is, even though I'm using it as a computer monitor. I am putting everything through it. The consoles go through this TV, movies go through it, everything goes through this thing. And when I decided to combine everything into one screen at the end of 2008 and get rid of the setup I used to have, where I had a computer screen, then I had a screen for everything else. When I decided to get rid of that setup, I decided to go all in what was called full HD at the time, 1080p, and get like a 37-inch. Got something, it was a little too big actually. The screen was just a tad too big, so I had to back the desk away a little more so the heat from the top of this thing doesn't exhaust straight into the cathedral ceiling. But it's worked out quite well over the years, and it's just hilarious when I see these 4K fanboys out there, yes, they already exist, that are like, oh, I have such an awesome 4K screen, and then it's like 24-inch, 28-inch. No, I need something about this size. So if I were to go 4K, it would probably be a 40-inch TV because the edges of the TVs have shrunk in the last several years, so the bezels are thinner now, so I would probably be looking at a 40-inch instead. There's no more 37-inch, so. And interestingly enough, Samsung actually currently has a 40-inch 4K LCD that actually would be about the same, well, actually a little bit more, but around the same price range as this monster was back in 2008. So maybe I should give it a couple of years for the prices to drop, to not pay that much for a screen ever again. Plus, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this screen at all, even after all these years. Heck, we're looking at it right now. We have such a great picture on the analog circuit. We're still using analog on this thing. Watch. Source. PC instead of HDMI. So, that cable did a lot to really bridge the gap between analog and digital. There's a really good picture on here, even though it's VGA. So I do have the HDMI around for my curiosity's sake if I want to use HDMI again. But no, this cable has really done a lot to bring these two sources closer together and almost eliminate the differences between them. However, 4K is not even on my radar for a few very simple reasons. First of all, it's overrated. Secondly, it's too expensive. Thirdly, a lot of people that are buying into 4K are sinking money into what is easily the biggest money sink of the mid-2010s because they're going into it without thinking things through, and they're not thinking about the technical side of it, and they're not thinking about just the investment side of it in terms of getting their money's worth. So let's cover some details on that stuff, shall we? The first thing we have to consider when talking about the 4K marketing hysteria is the state of the business climate of the television industry right now, which is basically full-on desperation mode. Here is an article from 2012. Have consumers maxed out on TV purchases? And this really describes what has happened to television sales ever since everyone went out and bought their HD TVs, and they've been happy with them ever since. Short of like cheap sets breaking or something like that, short of like the TVs breaking and not being worth fixing, there hasn't been as much of a reason to buy a new TV now. It's not as much of a bang for buck thing as it was when HD first became a thing, especially if you went to 1080p. Maybe you might have wound up buying incrementally, going to 720 to start and then 1080 later, but I mean, what's come out since then besides 4K? 1440p? Oh, wait a minute, that's a computer monitor resolution. So, yeah, I mean, this desperation is actually reflected in what the TV industry has called 4K. If you go to the Wikipedia article, here's something to consider. Resolutions up to this point, the marketing lingo has centered around the vertical size of the screen. So 720p is something that's 720 lines tall. 1080 was 1080 lines tall. UHD, however, or the 4K TVs would actually be called 2160p. Now here's the thing, 1080, 2160, from a 1 something to a 2 something in terms of numbers doesn't sound as exciting as 4K. That's gotta be amazing, right? 4,000, no, they just changed the way they talk about stuff. Instead of talking about screens in terms of their vertical size, now they're talking about screens in terms of their horizontal size. So here's the thing. The 4K that's getting hawked by the TV industry is not the same as the 4K film resolution. The 4K, it's a bit wider. It's 4096 by 2160, but the 16 by 9 TVs that are being sold as 4K is 3840 by 2160. This marketing is just plain stupid. And the reason why it's stupid is because 4K TV, it's not even 4,000 pixels across. As a matter of fact, this 1080p TV is 1920 by 1080. This close enough nonsense should be applying to 1080p TVs. If a 3840 by 2160 television is considered, zoom out, 4K, to do the hand codes of course, if 3840 is considered 4K, I got news for you. 1080p TVs, quote unquote, are 2K. Because 1920 is closer to 2000 than 3840 is to 4000. So why aren't these being called 2K TVs? Should we start calling them that? Oh, but that would lessen the people, they hear the bigger numbers, they want to go by the numbers, just like the megahertz myth. Matter of fact, that's a good way to describe it. It's the megahertz myth for televisions. Oh, whatever has the bigger increase in numbers, that's what we're going to call it. So we're going to go from 1080 to 4K. 4,000, because going from 1 something to 4 something is a lot cooler than going from 1 something to 2 something to 4 something. Yeah, whatever. Anyways, 1080p TVs. If we're going to call 3840 by 2160 4K, then the current 1080p standard is 2K. Because it actually makes, using that very same philosophy and being consistent, we should start calling every single 1080p television 2K, but it doesn't sound like it's much of an improvement to go from 2 something to 4 something as it does to go from 1 something to 4 something. Marketing BS. Oh shoot, son! But wait, there's more. Even though, by the very naming conventions of the industry, a 1080p television can technically be called 2K. As a matter of fact, calculator please. 1920 times 1080 is 2 million pixels. So maybe we should do 2M and 4M, but that wouldn't work because 3840 times 2160 is 8 million pixels. So there is kind of an increase in that respect with the number of pixels on the screen for a 16:9 display. But anyway, I mean, it's inconsistent. What are we going up by here? Are we going by 4 times, 2, etc.? It's just marketing nonsense as usual. Now here's what's called a 2K display these days. 2560 by 1440. That's what's called a 2K display these days. Oh, but it's only a 27-inch. I'd be going down to a smaller screen. And this is really the problem here. If I went to 1440p, I'd have to go to a smaller screen, which would cause all kinds of problems. And oops, there's 2K toners apparently too. So, let's look at some Newegg prices here. Let's zoom out and look at some Newegg prices. So here's the going rate for 1080s these days. 22-inch, like 100-something. That's nice, considering I had my 1280 by 1024 for 100-something back in 06. 32-inch for 400-something. It's a 46-inch. So the current 1080p replacement for this would be, and it's going up now. It was at 400 earlier, but now it's 447. So that's a 120 hertz too, by the way. It's nice that Newegg's got it on sale, so it's the same as a 60 hertz TV. But when you're dealing with these numbers, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, do I actually have the hardware to see do I have the hardware and the setup to see the difference? So that's one of the reasons why I've stuck with 60 hertz. I don't have my games right now to where all of them are maxing out at 60 frames a second with VSync turned on. So some of the beefier games like Skyrim or Test Drive Unlimited 2 or something like that, or maybe if I got something, a newer game like, say, Titanfall or something like that, or Dark Souls, if I bought a newer game that might have some trouble, I mean, here I am not even getting up to 60 frames per second. Why would I want a 120 hertz TV? Oh, and this rabbit hole goes even deeper too. So let's take a look at 4K. I look for Samsung 4K. Actually, let's just look for Samsung 4K, not Samsung 4K monitor. Load, you piece of crap. Come on, dinosaur subscriber line. Anyways, so here's a 28-inch. They're not going to show you the price because it's really low. But this 40-inch, here's the 40-inch equivalent. Here's the 4K equivalent of what I have right now. It's a request price SKU, but it's around $1,000. So we're talking about spending $1,000 on just a display. It's probably lower, more like $900 something or $800 something. But I mean, yeah. So we're talking about spending close to $1,000 just to increase the resolution on the screen, and in this case it would be without increasing the screen size. Now what is that going to do, I wonder? Let's minimize all of this and get some desktop icons on screen here. View, show desktop icons. So here is the kinds of sizes of desktop icons that I'm dealing with. Nothing too bizarre. I mean, this is small. I can get up to medium and large, but I like to keep things small. But here's what happens if you go 4K, 4 times the pixels. Now, oh no, let's zoom way the heck out so you can see the edge of the screen. Imagine if all of these icons were like a quarter of their size. Because you even read, and the text too. You can't, I'm zoomed all the way out. The camera's only a couple more inches in front of where my eyes actually are. So what you're seeing is almost what I'm seeing if you blow it up to full screen. So imagine if everything on here was a quarter of its size. Yeah, not good. Now, some people, in response to this problem with things getting too small on a 4K display, are like, oh, you can just go to large print mode and scale everything up. But here's the problem with scaling. Scaling only scales what's programmed to scale. So if you have an older program, an older copy of Microsoft Office, an Access database, if your Access forms don't have the code to scale up, I run into this all the time at work. People can't get my screens to fit, and that's because they're running in large print mode instead of just dropping the resolution. Resolutions increase the size of everything. Scaling only increases the size of specific elements of stuff. It's basically like large print mode and stuff like that. Scaling only increases the size of elements that are programmed to scale up, or vector type things like icons or something like that, or text or certain types of fonts. So everybody's like, oh yeah, you could just... Oh yeah, well you just increase the scale. No, you can't. So the better solution in a lot of cases is going to be after spending all that money on a 4K monitor, drop the resolution down, aka defeat the purpose of spending all that money on a 4K monitor and end up with a worse result than a 1080p monitor because now you're down at non-native resolution. And some monitors, if they're like some of the cheap crap monitors I've seen in the last several years, will pop a little message on the screen that gripes at you, not optimal resolution, please increase the size of your screen. You know, those NAG monitors, I've seen a couple of them at work, but, oh yeah, so you'll go to all the trouble, and for what? You know, it's kind of funny because back when I was in college, I used to have a 800 by 600 screen resolution on my 19-inch tube monitor, but I'd have some games where I had to drop down to 640 by 480 in order to get some better performance, in order to get decent performance. We might see the reverse with people with 4K displays. They'll buy a 4K display for gaming, and then they'll run Windows at a lower resolution and jump up to 4K when they start a game. So, This also, of course, is hardware dependent. You're going to need a top-of-the-line CPU and top-of-the-line graphics card to be able to run 4K at respectable frame rates. I mean, I hear a lot of people talking about 1440p as the kind of the best of both worlds. I really think that's just people trying to, soothe their bruised egos. They're like, oh, well, I'm not up to 4K at an acceptable frame rate, but I can go just a little bit above 1080p with a smaller screen. Let's go back to those 2Ks. Let's take out Samsung. Is there a single, well, not 2K games or anything like that. Let's do, watch out. 2K display. Rhyming away, what do you say, Jay? Alright, 2K display, enter. Come on, dinosaur subscriber line, you can do it. Ooh, a 29-inch, 20. Well, let's look at, is there something that shows a screen size? 4K, 2K, recommended resolution, 27-inch, 28-inch. These are smaller than 1080p. Ooh, a 32-inch. Wait a minute. Some of these get big, but $634 just so you can play in 1440p instead of 1080p. Ooh, you spend more for a smaller screen just to have higher resolution. Oh, wait, shoot, son. Here's some 2K monitors with 4-digit price tags. Dude, it's a Dell. $1,099. What makes this one so special? What's the, oh, shoot, man. We gotta check this one out. What kind of, it's 2K. Yay! Alright, it's okay. Ooh, it's a 6 millisecond response time. Most of the monitors I have are 8 milliseconds. So, 6 millisecond. Whoopity freaking do. Why can't they just put hertz like the TVs do? So, yeah, you'd spend all that money for a smaller screen, then you'd have to do shenanigans just to have your stuff be visible. And that's not even getting into the physics of the whole situation. Science! It's time to blind some fanboys with it, little 80s song. Oh, wait a minute. The song is She Blinded Me with Science. Oopsie doopsie! Okay, a smart-ass fail there, but let's move right along. So this is the Carlton Bale chart on basically when increased screen resolutions become noticeable at various feet. Go far enough away from any TV, and it doesn't even matter that whether or not it's HD. It's all going to look the same because you're just too darn far away from it. Now, I have the little pointer thingy here pointed at the 40-inch TV, 40-inch mark, which is the purple line is the full benefit of 4K versus partial benefits of 4K. Now, consider this. I took my tape measure in between recordings here, and I leaned back in the chair like if I was watching a movie or playing a video game with a controller. I get a little closer when I'm using keyboard and mouse because I don't have a very good lap desk set up for leaning back in the chair with a keyboard and mouse. However, when I'm closer to the TV, when I'm further back from the TV, I'm about 3.5 feet away. So if I got the 4K TV and spent all of that money, that little tick mark right there is 2.5 feet. So I would have to be really close to the screen to really get the full improvement. And here's the problem. If I am like 1.5 feet away from the screen, I'm going to have problems with losing my mouse cursor like I do when I'm in like World of Warcraft PvP or something. I'll be staring at, say, this part of the screen because that's where my character is, and my mouse may end up anywhere because your mouse cursor disappears when you're mouse turning because keyboard turning in WoW makes you look like an idiot. So that's a World of Warcraft thing. Yeah, you'd have to play to know what I'm talking about here. But so here I am, I'm trying to find where I have to actually click on something instead of using a hotkey, and I'm looking all around the screen trying to find where my mouse went. Where's my mouse? Because after all these years and all these screen size increases, World of Warcraft still 10 years later does not have a large mouse cursor option like regular Windows does. Alright, well, until Blizzard fixes that oversight. So anyways, I'd spend all that money on a 40-inch TV, and I'd have to be really close to see the full benefit of it. As opposed to this red line right here for 1080p, which is when the full benefit of 1080p is visible. And so with my 37-inch, I can be up to 5 feet away before I start losing detail. And believe me, I'm about 3.5 feet. I might go up to like 4.5 feet if I want to put my feet on the desk while watching a movie. But I will not get above that red line with the size TV that I have. I would most certainly be above the purple line for 4K. So what this means Is that, stop shaking the camera. Is at a relaxing distance watching a movie, playing a game with a controller or something like that I'm blowing up to 4K. If I want to be able to do that, I would need a screen that would be much larger, which would cause problems with me losing my mouse cursor, or just plain not having the space to fit a larger screen in here, because I'm already almost close to the cathedral ceiling with a 37-inch 1080p screen. So it is completely impractical, way too expensive, and the odds are that I would not be getting the full benefit of the larger screen size in most cases. So 1080p, hey, what can I say? When you start taking into account the laws of physics and stuff like that, you know, it's not, this is the sort of thing that a lot of people would say, you know, good enough is never good enough. When people said 720p is good enough or upscale DVD is good enough, the Blu-ray fanboys flipped their lids. No, it isn't good enough, but we actually, because of the laws of physics, have hit that spot where we can have a decent sized screen at a decent HD resolution that is good enough. Speaking of Blu-ray, read it and weep, Blu-ray fanboys. Of course, I should probably post links to these articles in the description anyways, but just a ZDNet article about the collapse of the packaged media industry versus streaming and stuff like that. I still get Blu-ray movies from time to time, but I'm not afraid of a DVD if there's no Blu-ray available, because, hey, I have a 1080p screen. Upscaling it, it's not going to look that terrible compared to, say, if it were 4K. The good news is that there is apparently a 4K Blu-ray format in the works, but I only wonder I wonder what that's going to be like, considering current 1080p Blu-ray. With current 1080p Blu-ray, a fleck of dust on the bottom of your disc can cause your movie to skip. So it's, yeah, I've run into that before. I'm like, oh shoot, there must be a fingerprint smudge on the bottom of the disc. Quick, stop the movie, take the disc out, da-da-da-da-da. Almost makes you wonder if the hassle is worth it versus just upscaling a DVD. So, or maybe we should go back to Laserdisc-sized movies and just expand the size of the disc for Blu-ray. Just have, like, huge Laserdisc-sized Blu-rays where you can actually fit that much data onto a disc without the tiniest little fleck of dust causing your movie to skip. So, it's kind of neat that they're working on 4K, but with the issues that we've just talked about, Blu-ray in and of itself is already an enthusiast format. I can only imagine what 4K Blu-ray is going to be like, especially when we just went over the hard science on how you really need a large TV to see 4K at a respectable viewing distance. So, So I figured I should throw that in. It's nice that there is Ultra HD 4K on its way, Blu-ray on its way anyways, at the end of this year. But, as if Blu-ray wasn't enough of an enthusiast product as it is, this will be even more of an enthusiast product, and basically play toys for the rich. I mean, we were talking like a 40-inch TV that you need to be really close to in order to see the benefit of 4K, costing $1,000. So what actually could I put in my living room to see the full benefit of 4K? What size are we looking at? 60-inch? How much does that cost? So the people that have the money to blow as much money on a television as they'd spend on a cheap car, well, maybe they can have some fun with this, but I think I'll stick with 1080p. So I'm sure I'll get a lot of hate mail, hate comments, dislikes, the whole 9 yards from all the fanboys that I've just enraged, but somebody had to call a spade here, and quite frankly, 4K is an overrated marketing ploy that is being pushed upon the general public by a television industry desperate to return to the glory days when everybody was buying their HD TVs and enjoying them for the first time ever. But unfortunately, an incremental improvement is just an incremental improvement. It's not knock your socks off innovation that's going to move product. And furthermore, when more people learn about the hard science, they might feel a little stupid for figuring out that old saying about fools and their money. So, I said it before, and I will say it again. 4K is a money sink that I will gladly pass on. For now, at least. Until next time, this is MultimediaJay, signing off. Thanks for stopping by.